This is the review for last week, week 7, in Intro to Visual Art. To begin this review, we are going to talk about answers to the quiz. So, what is the difference between a plan and a sketch? Well, a sketch is a drawing made to get an idea down on paper. A plan shows details on how to put an idea together. When a person draws with charcoal, what is that material and what are they leaving on the paper? Charcoal is burnt wood or bone. They are leaving traces of that burnt wood on the paper. How are color pastels made? Pastels are made by crushing up pigment, mixing it with a binder or glue, and baking it. Describe your own method for making an experimental mark. Now, for this answer, you could have said whatever, um, just be creative. You could, for example, fill water balloons with paint and throw them at a car, and that would be experimental mark making. Whatever you come up with. How did Vic Muniz make the artwork Marat Sebastio, Pictures of Garbage, in 2008? Garbage workers at a landfill in Brazil helped him arrange trash in order to draw the image out really big. The artwork is a copy of another famous painting called The Death of Marat, 1793, by the artist Jacques-Louis David. Do you like the art of Vic Muniz? Why or why not? And this, your opinion, is all I was looking for. So what was your opinion on the art of Vic Muniz? I wanted you to tell me why or why not and give good reason. So personally, I like the art of Vic Muniz. I like the idea of reproducing famous artworks in particular through discarded debris. And I think if you gave an answer along those lines, that would be fine. All right, let's do a review of our slides from last week. We began last week, the first week, talking about two-dimensional art, and there we established that we'll be talking about drawing and painting and mark making and printmaking. But last week we spoke about drawing and experimental mark making. So there are three basic types of drawings: sketches, plans, and fully developed artworks. This is an example of an artwork made 32,000 years ago on a cave wall. And so we have been drawing since the dawn of humanity. Even children draw. These are some examples of sketches by Leonardo da Vinci. These are sketches because they're not fully realized. They are ideas that are put into the world. This is sort of an example of a plan. Um, Consider plans sort of the blueprints for building a building or even building an artwork. And then there is fully autonomous works of art. I described different drawing mediums, and we discussed pencil, charcoal, chalk and pastel, crayon, and we discussed wet media, including ink and wash. So this is an example of pencil, something that most people are familiar with. Another example of pencil. Here's charcoal. Charcoal is, of course, burned wood, like in the quiz. Another example of charcoal. So this drawing shows pastel. Pastel is pigment, and pigment is essentially a ground up mineral or some sort of something found in nature, whether it comes from a tree or from the ground. So it's ground up, mixed into a glue type paste, put into a form or a mold and baked into the shape of a pastel. So when a person is drawing with a pastel, they're really drawing with minerals that come from around the world. Another example of a pastel drawing. Oh, and remember that chalk comes from the ground. Chalk is a process of uh, geo- geology. It is Chalk is essentially all the little diatoms and little tiny bugs that were living in the ocean millions and millions of years ago. So this is another example of pastel. This is sort of a difficult example because it is done so well, but I did want to show you the range that pastel can do. This is crayon. So what crayon is it's similar to pastel where we have a pigment that comes from around the world. In this instance, it is just charcoal that is ground up and then suspended in wax. So molten wax. The wax hardens, and there you have crayon. Another example of crayon. So there's ink. Ink is considered a wet medium. So imagine your ballpoint pen. The ink inside your ballpoint pen is wet. Ink can also be applied with a brush. But all this is ink that might have been mixed, you know, painted, but really most of it is drawn with probably a pen rather than a brush. This is an example of a wash, so that is watered down ink. Another wash, watered down ink. Then we spoke about experimental mark making, and there are many ways to produce experimental marks. For example, this way, where the artist uses gunpowder and fireworks to draw images, where he set parameters in which the art would be made or the mark would be made, but he did not define the mark. So he sprinkled, in this instance, he sprinkled gunpowder on paper in these little piles and then lit it off, and then this is what happened. He didn't know what the marks would be made, but he had an idea because he set the parameters. Another interesting mark making, the person in the front interpreting what is being drawn on their back. And then this is even more experimental mark making, and this is just an example where you can do a drawing and uh, set rules for the drawing and then collaborate with other people. So this drawing is called an exquisite corpse, where one person draws the head and then another person draws the torso and another person draws the legs and then what they're standing on. But each person the paper's folded in a way so that each person that draws doesn't understand what is drawn on the other side. So that's it for the week 7 review. After this, watch the week 8 lecture followed by the Art of the Day lecture. And then your quiz, to remind you, will be on this week. We'll be talking about painting, and it'll be on the Art of the Day presentation.